What is up, everyone? Welcome to TCR Live. I'm here with my good friend, Aarron Van Buren. I appreciate you making time to join me, Aarron. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. And just it seems like a fast week. I mean, it's already been a week since we were last on this thing. Like, time flies. So
yeah, for sure. Well, there's a lot going on. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on that we talked about last week with a certain one, Mr. Kyler Murray. We're not going to talk about that tonight. We've talked about that a lot. There's still a lot going on with that, but we want to shift and talk about Arizona Cardinals, their current free agents. In particular, we want to talk about which of those free agents that the Cardinals are looking at, making a decision about whether to re-sign them, let them walk. Which players should they prioritize bringing back, and which players to whom should they say, yeah, no thanks, right? Mm-hmm. So Aarron and I both have kind of prepared to talk about that a little bit, and obviously we'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. So we're gonna jump right into it, and if you want to get in the chat with your comments, the top 5 players the Cardinals should re-sign amongst their existing free agents. So we're going to kind of go back and forth and each talk about one of ours at a time. And we'll probably have some overlap in our list, and there might be some differences. And then you tell us in the chat who you think are players the Cardinals should prioritize. So Aarron, as the guest on the channel, I'll let you go ahead and start. Who's the first player on your list that you think the Cardinals absolutely need to prioritize re-signing this offseason?
Of course. My list is not really in terms of importance. It's just people in general. But up there, as I think you're probably going to agree with me, it's James Conner. I mean, James Conner had most of the rushing touchdowns for the whole team. And this Cardinals team had the 3rd most rushing touchdown this season in the team's 124-year history, if I got that correct, from 1898. So, I mean, who would have ever thought? I mean, I didn't like the signing at first. I thought he was too injury prone, but boy, did he prove me wrong. And I've said before, I'll eat it then and I'll eat it now. But I'm happy that we got to have him and that he's expressed interest in coming back. So it's definitely got to be number 1.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And when it comes to hey, I didn't think this was going to work out. Listen, I am glad to be wrong about a player in that way, right? I'd rather be wrong, let my ego take the hit, and have a player exceed expectations. And I liked the signing when they brought him in. I didn't necessarily know if it would work out this well, but my philosophy on running backs is you need to kind of build a stable of running backs and have them that you can rotate in. And you need 3 guys that you feel comfortable running the ball, and one of them might get injured, 2 of them might get injured. That kind of happens over the course of a season. Right. But I love the way he fit in this offense. Just that big power back on the goal line, the kinds of things that he brought in that regard.
And I've been saying that for years. To have a big physical back. I mean, we had a chance for Derrick Henry and all these other physical running backs. And I mean, Beanie Wells was kind of that guy in 2010, but he was never kind of that freakish athlete that some of the other guys have been.
Yeah, 100%. I love the fit. He was productive, and he got a little banged up, but I expect when it comes to running backs, that's part of the reason I want at least 3 decent to good running backs on the roster. You have to expect someone's going to get banged up. Yep. And if I get 10 games out of one running back, 12 out of another, and 13 out of another, and it's just kind of the injuries are spread out, you just have to accept that, right? That's the way it is with running back. And that's one of the reasons I don't like signing a really high dollar running back. And even though my philosophy is don't pay big money for running backs, I think you can get him back at a reasonable price. Even though he made a Pro Bowl, I don't think anyone's going to pay him a huge amount because of the injury history and because of the philosophy on running backs around the league. So, that I wouldn't be on board with bringing back a running back, but that's a guy I think you should bring back. I'm going to bring up a name that might not be the first name people would think of, and he's not the most highest priority free agent. He's not a star, but a guy that I think in terms of the value and what he brings in terms of a skill set, I want to see them bring back, and that's tight end Max Williams. He got injured. Oh, you know what? Sorry, just a second. Want to make sure something sorry, but yeah, I think Max Williams I think I'm having an issue here, so let me just try to fix something. But yeah, I think Max Williams is a really important player for what they do. And I think he's a good fit. And I don't think he's terribly expensive. So, yeah, I think I'm having an issue here where it's not letting me see the comments. So I apologize. But I think people are in. So
I can double check here too.
But sorry, technical issues. Yeah, there is the chat. Okay. I apologize for anyone. There is a little, for whatever reason this is set.
I think because on my end it's a private video or something.
No, you know what? Here I see the comments here in the chat on YouTube, but they're not showing up in here. I do not know why it's set as a private. So I apologize to anyone. There's a technical issue here. I wonder if I can set that here.
I can read them off of my phone, or
yeah,
that might just be the best way to go.
But technical issues. I see your comments here. I can pop this chat out. All right, I've got the chat here. I won't be able to do them on the overlay, but I'm gonna try to respond. But anyway, Max Williams, I think he's a guy that you want to have. I think he's a guy you want to bring back because he's solid as a blocker. He's a decent but not great receiver. He's not going to be terribly expensive, and he brings nice depth. What are your thoughts on Max Williams?
Well, I think we finally saw what he could do, and I mean, he was already on at least pace for almost a career year before getting hurt. And I mean, I know most of that came in the Minnesota game, but it was a revelation early in the season. Just like, oh, so that's what it's like to have a tight end. And then of course we got Zach Ertz later on down the road. But I mean, you have the perfect combination. You're blocking tight end and you're catching tight end with Ertz and Williams. And I think keeping Williams there in the blocker or as a blocker is huge because we missed him throughout the season. I mean, the run game. It was still good, but when you needed 4th and 1, you didn't have anyone back there to be a good fullback like Williams has been to get a block. So I'm with you on that one for sure.
So who's your next? And I'll let me just say, hey, again to everyone who's in the chat. I see Red Sea, Diego Perez. Thank you for being here. Silver Wolf AZ. Ethan, John Rivera, thank you guys for being here. Again, I apologize. We're having something about the way I set this up, and your comments aren't showing up in the regular chat here. And I don't know that I'm going to be able to fix it right now. So, but we can see your comments. I just can't put them up on.
We know you're there.
We know you're there. So I see your questions in the chat, folks. So we will definitely respond to some of those. Let's go ahead and let's get to one comment. Silver Wolf AZ is asking. I know we said we weren't going to talk about the Murray saga, but any credibility to the rumors of that Cardinals are going to trade for CeeDee Lamb?
I mean, personally, I haven't heard anything on it, and if there was, I would have to do my research. But if I could put my 2 cents in on this, just stop with the CeeDee Lamb stuff. He's got DeAndre Hopkins. If it's not going to work with Hopkins, who's it going to work with? Somebody who he was a teammate with, maybe. But I mean, come on, guys. Maybe they should have picked him. Who knows? But at the same time. Well, that was the Isaiah Simmons year, yeah?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah,
Isaiah Simmons was still the right pick and is the right pick, and that's where I'll end my case on that.
So, if someone wanted to say they thought we should have taken Lamb and that would have been the better pick, I'm not going to debate that. But I don't think but the question if there's any credibility to that rumor, I don't think so. let me just speak a little more to that, because where I've seen it, there's actually a Twitter account, a guy named Nathan McKinnon, and I hate to even say his name because I don't want to give him any, not that I have a huge audience, but I don't want to, but basically this is a guy who's tweeting out, he's the guy who tweeted out that that Kyler Murray expects $55 million a year. And this guy has been tweeting out some stuff that's just, he's tweeted out consistent. It seems like he's trying to make a name for himself by tweeting out ridiculous stuff, trying and people have been buying into it, and and people who with legitimate connections and who are tied into the organization have refuted it. So the one place I saw the source of that rumor that they want to trade for CeeDee Lamb, and maybe it's come from other places, but it's this one Twitter account that I place no legitimacy and credence in. So I mean, is it possible? Maybe, but I'm not buying into that one. So we'll come back to some of the other questions and comments in the chat. Again, apologize for the technical issues. So who is your next player on your list that you would prioritize? And also, those of you in the chat, let us know if there's players that you think, the Cardinals should prioritize. Let us know in the comments, and we will respond to that as well. So who's the next player on your list, Aarron?
Colt McCoy.
Okay.
In the NFL, you're only as good as your backup, and nobody thought we would go 2-1 with Colt McCoy if he had to play last year. I mean, 66% win percentage out of a 35, 36-year-old backup quarterback. I'm going to take that. That's Drew Stanton-esque. I want a secure backup in case, God forbid, something happens.
Yeah, 100%. He wasn't one of my top 5, so to speak, but he was a guy on my list that I identified that I would want to sign. I really liked the Colt McCoy signing when it happened. I thought it was kind of one of those under the radar ones. And it wasn't necessarily because Colt McCoy himself is the best backup quarterback in the NFL. But my thought process was the Chris Streveler experiment wasn't working. And they brought him in my opinion, to try to do the Taysom Hill thing, and it didn't work out particularly well. They didn't use him enough, and he had his moments in preseason. But I wanted this team to bring in a legitimate veteran backup quarterback who could mentor Kyler, be a veteran presence in that room, and when they needed to call upon him, he could operate the offense. He could drive the bus, and we saw that. Yes, the Carolina game was a shambles. But backup quarterbacks
against Carolina.
Yeah, right. But like a backup quarterback's going to be inconsistent, right? If Colt McCoy had the consistency and the talent to play 3, 4, 5 games in a row that were wins like he got in those 2 games, he would be a starter somewhere. So you have to accept that. But to get 2 out of 3 wins and to look competent the way he did in those games, I'm with you. I think that's a guy you bring back. If you don't re-sign him, you need to re-sign someone like him, right? A veteran backup quarterback. I think the connection being from Texas is good for Kyler, but I'm with you there. So the next person on my list I'm going to mention is I'm going to go with Antoine Wesley. This is kind of a low stakes one. He's, exclusive rights free agent. He's not, he's a guy who showed some promise. He looked nice at points. I don't know that he's ready to be the undisputed starter, but I'd like to see more of him in that role, where AJ Green was. He's not going to cost a ton to bring back. I like to bring him in, maybe pair him with a free agent to kind of platoon on that outside wide receiver role. So I think you saw enough from him that I want them to bring him back. He's not going to cost that, and let's see what he can do with some more snaps.
Yeah, and I mean, sadly, he was the best performing wide receiver sometimes down the stretch. And I mean, when I saw that we're bringing in some 6'6" guy who's, a smaller frame, and he's the Texas Tech guy, I'm like, oh, great. This is just a Kingsbury, doing a favor. But I was pleasantly surprised that he had some good catches. And I was surprised that, the Cardinals didn't try to get the ball to him more down the stretch. But, that conversation has sailed. So,
yeah. And again, for those of you who are just jumping in, I apologize. We're having a technical issue where I can't put your comments up on the screen, but we do see your comments, and we're going to try to respond to them. I'm going to just one other thing. Someone at Classy Nasty asked if we heard about the wide receiver Marquise Brown from the Baltimore Ravens, and what I remember seeing from if it's what you're referring to, it's kind of along the lines of the Kyler CeeDee Lamb thing, because I guess he scrubbed his Instagram or something, or there was a picture of him next to, there was some social media thing that people were reading the teas and saying, oh, maybe he's going to Arizona. And, I think if that, unless there's something different that I'm missing there, I think I heard about what you're referring to. And, to me, it's just more of the same kind of nonsense that, people are.
I just think someone else probably, put that out there because their whole Kyler thing's going on. And they don't want the Cardinals dominating the news cycle or something.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see. Ethan, John Rivera saying, yeah, McCoy is reliable, so he agrees. And then Nick Ellis saying, James Conner and Ertz are people he would bring, but he's saying cut ties with Kirk and Green. So, and do you have, and let me know if you run out of ones on your list, because I know some of ours overlap, but is there someone else that you would identify as someone you think they should bring back?
I can just give you my final two here. Or actually, no, I have three left.
Well, let's do one at a time. So I got a few to work with. So yeah. Cool. So who's your next one?
My bad. I mean, it's Zach Ertz. I mean, do I need to say any less? I mean, first game, Houston, I don't know, 45, 50-yard touchdown or something, or 30, something like that. Easily the longest touchdown by a tight end since I've ever been a Cardinals fan. I can't remember a longer tight end touchdown since that. So, I mean, Ertz is a great football player, even greater human. I think if underscore is in this chat, he went to high school with Julie Ertz.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a small world, but he's a really great guy, and I would love to keep him in Arizona because I don't want to be playing against him.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a question of how much is he going to cost, and I don't know. I lean towards thinking he's not going to be as pricey as people think he's going to be. But yeah, and they traded away a pick and Tay Gowan, a player that I liked a lot for him, so there's a little bit of a sunk cost there, and I get that you can't make decisions just based on what you spent for a player. So I'm not going to approach it from the perspective that they need to re-sign him because they gave up that for him, but rather maybe that just tells you that they value. I mean, they traded for him, they value him, and they want him. And I can't imagine they just wanted him as a half a season rental.
Yeah.
So I think he was on my list as well. And I really like one of my earlier ones was Max Williams. I really love the tight end tandem of a healthy Max Williams and Zach Ertz coming back. That to me is a really solid tight end group. Ertz being the primary receiver, but he's an underrated blocker. Williams being a great blocker, who's an underrated receiver. Between the two of them, I think you've got a nice set. And then bring in maybe a rookie tight end behind them, and then you've got a nice tight end room. Right. I'm going to go with a guy that I'm going to say on my list, there's a question mark because I almost put him on the let him walk list because it's a tough one for me. But it's Christian Kirk, and I go back and forth, and part of it is, what is he going to cost? I get it. Like I said, I almost put him on the let it walk, but here's the thing that made me change my mind. Okay. As I was thinking about it today, I was like, okay, yeah, he wasn't great down the stretch, but part of that had to do with because DeAndre Hopkins was out, he was drawing a better, cornerback assignment. But I'm trying to imagine, what does this offense look like if they have people back and have it healthy? He was so good in that slot in the first half of the season when Hopkins was healthy and Kirk was able to do his thing. I mean, he was one of the better slot receivers in the NFL for that period of time.
Right.
So, I think if you have Hopkins back healthy, you've got a receiver on the other side, whoever that might be, in replacing AJ Green, and you let Kirk be that slot receiver and draw that slot cornerback like he was, I think he can be. We're going to see more of what we saw in the first half of the season when he was really, really good. I get that when he was called on to carry more of the offense, he couldn't do it. but you don't want to have him to do that. But if you have him as your third best receiving option, he could be elite at that in terms of that role. So I get it. I'm torn on him, but I think I just came back to thinking about how good he was when Hopkins was healthy and how good he is when he's not the number 2 or 1 receiving option. And I think that could help make for a really great offense.
I mean, at this point, I think, we've kicked the tires on Kirk, and it's just not working out. I mean, I was there in Green Bay, as I'm sure if you've ever been on my channel, I was there in Green Bay his rookie season when he broke his foot. And maybe it's just never been the same since then. I don't know if that's changed anything. But another thing to remember early in the season, the Cardinals were still using Rondale Moore. He disappeared after week 4, and just like all Cardinals rookies seem to do for some reason because of the coaching staff. But it's time for someone new. That's all I'm going to say.
Hey, listen, I get it. I knew that would be kind of my most polarizing pick. And Nick says in the chat, if we keep Kirk, then why draft more? I get it. But, this team does run a lot of 4 wide receiver sets, so they can both be on the field. But, and I see Ethan John Rivera says, I prefer Kirk to walk. I hear y'all, and I don't feel so strongly about it that I'm going to, argue with anyone about it. Like I said, I go back and forth. But when I thought about how good he was first half of the season, and just imagine this offense starting out with a healthy Hopkins and Kirk where he was, it could be really good. But we'll see. Who's next on your list?
Well, I'm probably going to be, to follow you on this one. I'm going to say Chris Banjo.
Okay.
It's just a hunch here with me. I think he's a solid backup behind Buda. He's got tons of NFL experience. He's not that no-name guy who played in the Panthers game in 2020, who I will never forget, and I will never remember his name. Kind of sounds like a country song there, but I just think he's good, and I think he also plays special teams. And ask the Packers, you can't have enough special teams experience. So that's just my hunch. I really want to see Chris Banjo back on the team.
Let me say, I don't disagree with you. Like I didn't put him on my list. He's a guy who's a safety special teams, but he's played well at points when he's been called upon.
Right.
So I don't mind that. He's not going to cost a lot, right, in terms of the contract. So, I don't hate that. I don't, you need some depth at safety. He's a solid guy. He'll contribute on special teams. I don't have a problem with that at all.
I feel like he's a kind of like a step down to what Rashad Johnson was to Tyrann Mathieu. In a way, not as much, but just kind of there.
Yeah. So I see underscores jumped in the chat, and he says, he more or less that he doesn't love the idea of bringing Kirk back, but he thinks that Kyler probably wants him back, and that it's probably more that leverage, and if Kyler wants him, maybe So I get it, and that makes sense. That maybe he's not anyone's first choice, but he's a guy that you bring back for Kyler's sake if Kyler likes him, right? Chris Banjo is more important than Jalen. Well, so Jose, and let me respond to that, because we're not saying it's more important than Jalen Thompson. In fact, and you mentioned earlier re-sign Byron Murphy and Jalen Thompson. So Jose, they're not free agents this year. They've got at least another year. I think Byron Murphy has 1 more year on his rookie deal, and Thompson 1 or 2 more years, at least 1 more year. So let me say, those are 2 guys that I absolutely want them to sign and build around in the secondary. I think Jalen Thompson had a really great year. I think he's good. He and Buda are going to be a great safety tandem for years to come if they keep them both.
No, Jalen Thompson's a free agent. He's unrestricted.
Jalen Thompson? No.
According to Spotrac.
Really? So
I mean, maybe that was just a list that
let me
have him on there.
So I'm going to look that up.
You in the chat.
Contract. Jalen Thompson contract. He is signed. No, he is signed through 2022. This is the last year of his contract.
All right. I saw the green bubble.
Yeah. Right. So he has 1 more year. So Byron Murphy and Jalen Thompson both have at least 1 more year on their contract. I want them back. Absolutely. I want to extend those. So no, they're so it's next year.
Free agents here.
So Jose, the guys we're talking about right now are players who are free agents this offseason. Don't disagree with you at all. The only reason we haven't been talking about them is because they're not free agents yet. Yeah. But Banjo is not more important than Jalen Thompson, no, but he's a good backup. And I like him. I like him as a guy. Absolutely. So let me get another name out there. Since you went sort of little more under the radar kind of guy, I'm going to give you another guy who's under the radar. Aaron Brewer, our long snapper.
Nice.
Right. We had some struggles, right, when he was injured. We brought in a different long snapper and there were some issues with the kicking. So, he's not a big name, but he's been reliable and they need him. So
you don't notice him until you don't have one.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So 100% that's a guy I think they need to bring back. So Nick has a question. Do we use a franchise tag this year? What do you think?
I'm just trying to think of who we would even use it on. I mean, the Cardinals are in no place in terms of cap space to even mess around with it unless they can, do some LA Rams magic and, pay off a witch doctor to get under the cap. I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe the only person that it would go is to James Conner. I think he's our highest free agent. Maybe Zach Ertz, but I can't see anything past that.
I don't think they're going to use it. Obviously there's a number of reasons you would use a franchise tag. One reason is if you want to buy yourself more time to work out an extension with a player that you couldn't work it out with. But that's usually if you're talking a player in their prime, big money, you don't want to lose them, but you couldn't get a deal done this year. Let's do the franchise tag and revisit it. Or if there's a player who's an older player and you don't mind paying them more right now, but the thing they want that you're not okay with is a long-term contract, right? So the only player that I think maybe it makes sense in is Chandler Jones if they wanted to pay a lot of money for him and not do more than 1 year. But I don't think they're going to do that because one, they would have to, it would be a big price tag. They'd have to clear up a lot of salary cap room to do it. And two, there's already enough kind of, how should I say it? Bad will isn't quite the right word, but he's already not happy about how things went. Would he hold out? Would he even play? So I don't think they're going to do it. So I'm with you there. So underscore says, hey, Professor, you see a PFF top 100 had no Cardinals in it. I didn't see that. Are you talking about top 100 free agents?
No, they're top 100 best graded players on the year.
Well, Kyler Murray, though, was graded in the top 100. So I don't know I know his player grade was within the top 100.
I didn't check it for the Cardinals. For my
I didn't see that underscore. If you can clarify, is that their top 100 best players? Is this their high? Because I know like PFF has their player grades, but they also sometimes do lists that are more subjective. So I didn't see that. I'd be curious about the context on that. That doesn't make sense to me. I feel like there are clearly some Cardinals that belong there. But yeah,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. He says Kyler was not on it. Underscore. Is that their, I'll have to check that out. Is that their 100 best players? I mean, because
for 2021, he says.
Okay. So I have to imagine that is a subjective list. Okay. It couldn't be the highest graded players because his player grade was higher than,
well, in that article, they graded it just solely relative to their performance because otherwise, if they just ranked quarterbacks in there, all the quarterbacks would be at the top, and the top player was an offensive lineman.
Okay.
I forgot who it was.
That's interesting.
No, it was the Niners left tackle, Trent Williams. He had like a 98 grade or something. I'm like, okay, all right.
I will have to check out the article to see what their methodology is because there's, how you construct a list. I mean, obviously that to me doesn't seem like it ought to be that way. It seems like there should be a few Cardinals on that list, but I'll have to check out the methodology. I know folks aren't lot of folks aren't big fans of PFF, so I still think their grades are useful but not perfect. But I get it. Was there someone else that you wanted to go with on your list? I mean, I've got a few more I could mention, but
I just
thoughts?
got one more,
Okay.
and I mean, this guy doesn't really need a lot of explanation, but Dennis Gardeck. You need that spark plug on the defense and on the team because this team doesn't have any besides JJ Watt. And when if Watt's not out there, then it's no one. Gardeck is the guy.
Yeah, and Gardeck is a key contributor on special teams. He didn't put up any, the sack numbers this year. I don't know if he had any sacks.
He also had the running into the punter against Chicago. So
right. I'll tell you, the running into the punter penalty, I don't give anyone, I won't criticize someone for that unless it happens all the time. Because, it's like one of those things where if you get a finger on the ball, it's not a penalty, right? If you don't, it is a penalty. It's so hard with the way they got it dive. So I give people a pass on that one unless it happens way too frequently. But, with Dennis Gardeck, it's not just that he's a fan favorite. It's not just that he's really good on special teams. But if they do end up letting Chandler Jones walk, they're going to need to have some depth. They'll probably have to bring in a free agent or draft somebody to help replace him, but they're going to need some depth at that outside linebacker position. And, and I did a video recently on players that the Cardinals either need to cut or restructure their contracts for cap space. And Devin Kennard's on that list. So there's a chance Devin Kennard may be gone. We'll see. So they need some depth, out the edge rusher. And, so having him in there is another player that adds some depth there,
Well, that, and, maybe we would finally see Victor Dumakaji out in the regular season. I mean, I don't think that guy even got any regular season snaps. He was the defensive Eno Benjamin.
I think he might have got some, but we didn't see much. I'd have to double check, but certainly we didn't see much anything from him. So yeah, I'm with you there. There's a number of other players we could talk about, but why don't we go ahead and transition? And I've seen a lot of love for Dennis Gardeck. Gardecky, he's our energizer, 100%. And now Nick is asking, are you going to do a mock draft? Yes. In fact, I'm probably going to be sometime in the next week or two starting doing some mock draft stuff like live streams where we'll talk about draft prospects and some mock drafts. And I'll probably be doing a couple videos where I'll do some of the mock drafts using like PFF. I use PFF's mock draft simulator. I'll be doing multiple mock drafts as we get going. Do you have plans to do mock drafts?
I kind of just do them casually. I really like to do the mock draft database because you can have it just be like, your traditional mock draft where everything is just computerized, but then you can like change how fast the draft moves, and you can change how loose the trades are, and you can make it chaotic, and it's a lot of fun. There's also another one. I think it's the Draft Network. I don't know, they're very similar. That's the one where the system will actually tell you, hey, this team wants to trade up with you.
Yeah.
And so it can be interesting. You can have a lot of fun with it. So.
Yeah, a lot of people like that one. I think the PFF's mock draft has some of the sliders you can adjust. So but yeah. So I'll be doing some of those. So let's transition to talking about some of the players that we think the Cardinals should let walk. Some of the players that are free agents that, either it might be that, we just didn't like what we saw from them, or it could be that we like them. We just don't think we think they're going to cost too much. We think the Cardinals should try to get a better player at the position. So who's your first player that you have on the let him walk list?
Kevin Peterson.
Okay.
Every time I see him on the field, I get bad flashbacks to him and Dre Kirkpatrick from 2020. And he only played 20% of the snaps on defense this year, or it was a pretty low number. And he wasn't targeted that much, but when he was targeted in the last 3 years, quarterback's passer rating when they target Kevin Peterson is the following: 113.9 in 2019, 132.3 in 2020, and 117.7 last year. So if you throw his way, you're getting a completion. And And this year he gave up only 2 touchdowns, but that's actually a career high according to PFR. And it's just like, at this point, no more secondary players named Peterson for a long time.
Right. We've had our share of Petersons.
Right.
I'm with you. Like Kevin Peterson to me is a guy, he's a practice squad bubble kind of a guy. But here's the thing. He's been around with the Cardinals for a while, and we've seen what he is. And maybe he's better than some of the guys we pulled off the street at points really at the end of the season when it was really bad. But I don't think he's going to become a better player. And when I compare him, for example, to a guy like Antonio Hamilton that we got we signed, I think he was cut by the Bucks. Bargain bin guy, another kind of one of those guys who's a practice, but like he played well for us. And like, I get that Peterson is a guy who's cheap, end of the roster, bubble practice squad guy. So you shouldn't have to have him play significant snaps, but I'd rather get someone new who has upside, who, even if it's an undrafted free agent, get someone new in that bubble practice squad spot and see if it's someone who can end up becoming better. Take a shot at someone new, right? So I'm with you. Try to get someone new or upgrade, right?
Or just sign someone off a Green Bay's practice squad.
Right.
After him.
Right. Yes. So I'm going to go with a guy that I think a lot of people agree with, that they should let walk. And let me say, I've been a little bit of an apologist for this guy through the season, that I'm like, he wasn't as bad as people thought he was, but I want to see them get someone younger, maybe better, just go in a different direction, develop someone. And that's AJ Green. Obviously the play where he didn't turn around, everyone will remember that forever. I do think people are too quickly forgetting there were some really nice 50-50 balls that he made some really nice plays to at the season. He had his moments, but he had his bad moments. I don't hate on him as much as some people do, but I think we should go in another direction, whether it's bring in a rookie, get a budget free agent and platoon him with Antoine Wesley. I think we let AJ Green walk.
I would agree. It was, honestly, the words out of my mouth when we signed him, and I was like, really? Like, that's the guy? Of course, he did make a lot of plays, and he had that clutch 3rd and long conversion to get the drive going against Green Bay in the 4th quarter. But also, not turning around is the equivalent of early Doucette tripping wide open in the end zone against Cincinnati. Not to bring that back up, but I for some reason I can never get those plays out of my head.
Yeah. He suffered an Edgerrin James fate. He comes to the Cardinals, his team goes to the Super Bowl the next year. Right. Or within the next couple of years, whatever it was. So at this point, he should go try to find somebody who's going to feature him as a top contender or top wide receiver. Or maybe he just go ring chases somewhere else. I don't know. Yeah, for sure. Who is your next person that you think they should let go? And I know this one is definitely going to get the chat fired up, but it's Max Garcia. They're already talking about him, right? Yeah. From one offensive lineman to another, and I've never played in the NFL, so I can never really dish on technique. But there are just times when you know that, all right, either this scheme is not helping me out, or there's something wrong with me, or something else going on. And like I said, I didn't even play that much even in college, so take my analysis with a grain of salt. But it was tough, and on the first play, just to get bullied by Aaron Donald one-on-one, it was almost a setup there that he had no help. And the Cardinals never even gave Kyler Murray help in blocking by, at least having someone in the backfield who could actually block someone like that, or maybe even, 2 tight ends out there. I know we were hurt all year, but, Max Garcia, it was frustrating. I really commend his effort for trying to play multiple positions in a year. Right. But maybe there's a better team out there for him. Yeah. He was on my list too. And for those of you just jumping in, those of you who've been here for a while, we're having some issues with the chat. We can see your comments. I can't put them on the screen, but folks that are here, thanks for being here. I saw Lennon Wolf, the man, the legend, jumped in. Easy, no steroids. Tim Kettner, some folks. Thank the Cattle Dog. Thanks for being here, folks. Sorry, we can't put your comments on. Max Garcia was on my list here, but I'd like to kind of, there's a few things I'd like to say about Max Garcia. One, I have been a little bit of an apologist for him too, because I think if Max Garcia is called upon just to be a backup guard, he's a good backup guard. He has starting experience in the NFL. You don't necessarily want him to be your starter, though he could be a low-end starter, somewhere. He's not a bad backup guard. But similar to the Kevin Peterson thing, I just rather get a young new guy with potential to develop to get in that roster spot instead of Max Garcia. So if they bring Max Garcia back, as long as they bring in a real backup center, and they keep Garcia at guard, I can live with that. But I'd rather see them bring in like a 5th round pick, 6th round pick, take that roster spot, and try to develop a guy who could become a starter, rather than have a guy who's a career backup. One other thing I'd like to say about Max Garcia, this is kind of a side thing, but I don't know if you've all seen this, but like Max Garcia got some really vitriolic hate on social media. Like people saying like things that you don't say to other humans to him when he played poorly. And Max Garcia responded with class, and all things aside, like, be better, do better, fans. Like, don't, like, people went at him with, it wasn't like, like, first of all, if a player plays badly, I don't think you should go and attack them on social media. Like, just don't, right? Do better. But like, he got some really, really bad things, like just really targeted at him by some people who are just bad humans. And I feel bad for the guy. Yeah, he struggled, but like, and I get that we were all frustrated, but like, no one should take that, should go at a player on social media and just, I don't know, that's just my soapbox. But I agree, he's on my list of players I think they should move on from. I'm going to throw a name out there that might be a little bit controversial because I love this player. This is a player that it's not about I don't want him on the roster, I don't like his fit. It's all about roster building strategy and what you're going to have to pay for him versus his replaceability. And that's Chase Edmonds. I love Chase Edmonds. I like him in the role, but I don't think I'm like I said, we both were on the same page in terms of bringing back Connor. You're going to pay for Connor. I think you draft a running back in somewhere between rounds 4 and 6 to be that third down back to kind of partner with James Conner. I love Edmonds. He's a great player. I love him in this offense. I just think what it's going to cost to bring him back isn't going to be worth it. Now, if he'll come back for a really, really affordable deal, then great, right? But I just don't think that's going to happen. So what are your thoughts on that?
It's time to move on. I mean, he's never produced to the amount that we've expected him to. And I can't remember what round draft pick he was. But I mean, he's had plenty of chances to take over this offense. I mean, 2019, David Johnson goes down, and then he has that 3-touchdown game against the Giants. Yeah, the Giants were terrible, but it looked like, oh, hey, maybe we actually do kind of have something here. And then I think it wasn't even 2 weeks later, he's hurt, and then Kenyon Drake comes in and makes him an afterthought. And then even the next year too, then Connor comes in and, no, not Connor. I forgot who the other running back was in 2020. Drake was still there in 2020.
Yeah, Drake.
Yeah, so Drake, I mean, even then, I mean, you could debate the difference in the performance between the two, but there's got to be someone who's more electric back there and who's also less injured than Chase Edmonds. And I would like to see someone fresh back there who's a better receiving back than Edmonds.
I think I'm a little higher on Edmonds than you are, and part of it is maybe because my expectations are framed a little bit differently. I never really saw him as a guy who's going to come in and take command of the job. I see him, his best fit is that complementary third down back, and I think he does a nice job in that. But I agree he's not like a number one back or a lead back. A couple comments I will respond to. Let's start. Easy No Steroid says, think we can sign both running backs for 10 to 12 million total. I think we could, but I think that's too much to spend on two running backs. I think we could maybe get them both out, but I don't think I want to spend that much for two running for them. I want to in a perfect world, I want to bring back Connor for maybe 6 million or so ish. If you can make that maybe 7 million, and then draft someone who's going to cost a lot less as that second running back.
Kenneth Walker, Michigan State would be a dream.
Yeah, there you go. Underscore. I'm sorry. No, go ahead, and then I'll. Yeah, sorry.
Well, I mean, I've been singing his praises forever. I went to this college football season opener of when they came up here to Northwestern, and he had like 13 carries, 270 yards, and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah,
the guy's unbelievable.
There's just so many. There's so many. You can get so many good running backs. And Underscored said, sucks being a running back in the NFL today's game. It feels like if you want more than 5 million, you can be easily replaced. It's unfortunate, but that is the reality. And I'll be honest, like as much as I think that's unfortunate for the players. But like, if you want to build a roster, you have to make those tough decisions. And I think you don't spend a lot of money in running backs. He also said, mentioned Lucas Patrick, backup guard center for the Packers. I don't know a lot about him, but that's the kind of guy, bring in a guy who's, I know you're from that region, so you might have some insights on him, but someone like that, as a legitimate center backup.
I mean, looking just quickly, I don't have I don't have the paid version of PFF. I mean, in 911 snaps he played on offense, he only gave up 1 sack, but his overall grade, according to PFF, was a 57.2.
That's fine for a backup. I mean, that's not a great grade, but that's what you get for a backup. Yeah. I don't know. Okay. Like, and Alexis is sorry. Hey, sorry I'm late. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you jumping in. All right. So let's see. I just went with Chase Edmonds. Who's someone else on your list, Aaron, that you think they should let walk?
Darrell Daniels or Darrell.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the pronunciation. But Daniels, I mean, he's had 3 catches in 10 years. 10 catches in 3 years with the team. And he's not used on the field for blocking. So what is he doing here? And I think late in the season, maybe it was against Dallas, they threw like a screen to him or something. And I lost my mind. I'm like, what is he even doing in the game? He's not known for catching things very well. And it's just like, I didn't get it. And I haven't seen anything inspiring from him. So he can go sign with Seattle or something.
He's on my list of guys to let walk. In fact, that's where he originally came from. I think he was like a 6th round pick for Seattle or something like that.
Indianapolis, I think.
Oh, was it? I think it. Well, look it up if you don't mind, and I'll. But I'm with you. I've never been a big Darrell Daniels guy. And when you're talking about a third string tight end, you don't necessarily expect a lot, but I've just never seen anything from him that really impressed me. I'd rather see, we talked about, Max Williams and Zach Ertz bringing them back. I'd like to see them bring those 2 tight ends back and draft someone on day 3 and develop a guy.
It is Indianapolis, by the way.
Oh, was
2017.
Okay. Shows what I know. All right. So yeah, I'm with you though. Let Darrell Daniels walk. You're going with those safe ones, players that people aren't really gonna.
Well, I mean, I have 1, 2, 3. I think I only have 1 more to go here.
Okay. I'm gonna go with a guy that we've talked about a lot, and some people disagree with me, some will. I've done a video on this, but I'm going to go with Chandler Jones.
That was the last guy I had.
Oh man, I'm sorry. I had some other guys.
I thought you were going to say it like 3 guys earlier, but I'm like you like approached each one the same way. So I'm like, is this going to be it?
You got yeah. So listen. I'll let you give your rationale first, since I kind of stole your thunder there.
I mean, it's not really stealing my thunder. I mean, it was bound to happen sooner or later. I I think the fact is that, I mean, yes, he is the Cardinals' all-time sack leader, and he has, made a lot of plays. But at the same time, I feel like he demands so much more because he is the only guy getting sacks on the defense, minus the statistical outlier in Hassan Reddick last year when he got 12. It was no, it was 2 years ago now. Jeez, but you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole act about taking everything off the Instagram and then no one really taking it seriously when in this day and age that has to be taken seriously. I mean, even if he is older than Kyler, it is still a big red flag. So I just think he can go get paid somewhere else, and I'm not going to miss him. I actually didn't really want Jonathan Cooper to be traded at the time, even with all of his struggles. I thought maybe he still could have improved, but hindsight is always 2020. But it's time for like Chandler to go somewhere else and post weird, tweets and everything.
I like Chandler Jones. I think he's still one of the best pass rushers in terms of skill in the NFL, but he's older, has had a hard time staying healthy. He didn't have a great season. He had one really great game that really kind of skewed his stats. He's probably going to ask for too much money.
Right.
I'd rather spend that money somewhere else and let someone else pay him big money. Bring in a budget free agent, a guy who will get a 7, 8, 9 sacks, pair him with Marcus Golden, draft someone maybe to develop, and kind of go that route. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of where I would
The D
go
tackle from Georgia, who is a monster, would be great.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot his name. And the other thing I wanted to say here too is like there were a couple games that once the Cardinals really started like loosening or like letting the momentum slip, Chandler Jones made some boneheaded plays and penalties.
Yeah.
You could see that he was actually still running through the quarterback after he was well done and late hits and everything.
Yeah. Jose, I'm not even going to try to, I apologize. I'll mess up your last name. Sisyoma. I apologize. I, as someone who has had his last name butchered my entire life, I feel bad about butchering that. So let me apologize. But ask, Joseph, who's the most expensive cuts we can make to save money for agents coming up? I'll use this as a chance to pitch. I actually just did a video on this like a day or two ago. 5 players the Cardinals should cut or restructure. So I'd encourage you to check that out. But I'll tell you, the 2 places where they can save the most money are Justin Pugh. He's got like an $11 million cap hit with like a $2 million dead cap number. So you can save a lot of money. And the other one is DJ Humphries. There's like his cap number is 19 million, and I want to say there's like a 4 million dead cap, but like 15 million of savings. Now, I don't think we should get rid of DJ Humphries. I know he had a down year. I still think he's a good left tackle. He's a little inconsistent. I do think they should try to restructure or maybe even do some sort of extension that brings his cap number down and evens it out. I know Cattle Dog saying Pugh has to go with Max. I think Pugh's been solid, but not spectacular. But I do think that cap number is not tenable. I think they might have to cut him and try to just replace him, or if they can get some sort of reworked deal. But I just think that $11 million salary cap number for Pugh is, I said in my video, that's what you pay for a Pro Bowl guard. You pay $11 million for a Pro Bowl guard. You don't pay it for a decent starter, right? What are your thoughts there?
Sorry, my camera got a little weird. It was
I saw that.
Justin Pugh, yes.
Justin Pugh. I mean, you can. There's like something like $9 million that can be saved, something like that, by cutting him.
I mean, looking between the two, I would prefer to keep Pugh over Humphries personally.
Okay.
Just because I always thought when Pugh was gone, I mean, the interior really suffered. I mean, not like it wasn't, that much better with Pugh in there, but at least Pugh, wasn't going to, he's not going to win you all the battles in the trenches, but he's also not going to lose them.
Yeah.
And Humphries was so close to being a bust until he magically stayed healthy for the last 3 years, pretty much. But then even at this time, it's just kind of like, I wish I had the numbers and I did the research on it, but it's another guy that I'm just tired of, and then, I'm sorry. That's all I have up here.
Yeah. So I have Justin Pugh is $11.8 million cap hit, $9.8 million you could save by cutting him. I like Pugh, and underscore S. He says he already took a pay cut. Not sure he'll do it again. And maybe he won't. I think with players, sometimes when you ask would this guy take a pay cut, I think sometimes there maybe pride comes into it. Like, I'm not going to do that again. But a lot of times I think what happens is their agent looks at it and says, what kind of contract are you going to get on the open market? And what are they offering you in terms of the restructured, and is what they're offering you still better than what you would get as a free agent? And I don't know what they're going to offer him and what they would offer him. And if it would be better, he might take that, a restructured or something, if it's better than what he could get as a free agent. But I like Justin Pugh, but I just think you can't keep him on for $11.8 million. I think you can't justify it with how little cap space they have. So if you have to cut him and sign another guy to replace him, who's hopefully comparable for, maybe you cut Pugh and you sign a guy for $5 million who can play as well, or ends up doing, you might have to do that. I don't, I like Pugh. I'd like to have him back. I don't think you can do $11.8 million.
Yeah. And the Cardinals gave up, the 15th most sacks in the league. So you're right in the middle of the pack, but had, the team performed, closer to maybe like the 10th fewest or something like that, then maybe I would justify, giving them those guys another chance or maybe more money. But it's always, playing with a mobile quarterback is hard, and you never know, when Murray is going to scramble or when his vision line is going to be cut off because everyone's almost 2 times the size of him. And so, it's tough, and I get it. I just, if there was one wish list I had, is for some magic to happen in the world and an offensive coordinator is dropped into Arizona's, gift basket overnight, kind of like a, Christmas or birthday gift. And there's whoever that is actually has an offense that supports the quarterback and actually uses under center things to help the offense go, and not just telegraph everything by going in 4 or 5 wide sets all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I think Easy No Steroids makes a point that I've often pondered. Why is it like Keim is a former offensive lineman, played for NC State, I think. Why does he struggle so much when it comes to drafting offensive linemen? I just wonder, does he have certain biases where he looks for traits that traits that he valued, but maybe aren't the right? I don't know. I mean, you'd think a guy who played offensive line would do a better job identifying and drafting offensive linemen.
I mean, think about this. I mean, Jonathan Cooper played at North Carolina, right?
And was it North Carolina or was it NC State?
Yeah, no, it was definitely. I think it was North Carolina.
No, you're right. It was North Carolina.
I got it. And then DJ Humphries was what? Florida?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So you can't really say that he doesn't try to go for the big names, but I feel like there just can't miss offensive prospects that are either people don't want to trade to the Cardinals for the right to pick them or afterwards. But I mean, in that 2013 draft, I wanted the guy who went to Pittsburgh from Stanford, and I forgot his name. He just retired too. The guard, I can't remember what it is, but that was the guy who had a much longer career out of any lineman in that class. I would have loved to have had the chance to, get someone like Mekhi Becton or somebody else as explosive. I mean, if you want to watch great offensive line film, go look up Kenyon Green from Texas A&M. And if you love pulling, you love somebody who can get to the second level fits, man, you're going to have fun.
And I will say, and I've seen somewhere something that quantified this, but the Cardinals haven't used a lot of draft capital and offensive linemen over the last 5 to 7 years.
No, because Michael Manet, 7th round pick, like that's
right,
your help.
Right. They've had a few picks here and there, that didn't really work out, what's his name that they cut went to Minnesota,
Mason
Cole, but like if you look at most teams are picking every year at least one offensive lineman, often someone on day 2. We seem to pick a first round offensive lineman or a 7th round offensive lineman, but we don't consistently. We're linebacker, right? So, I think we're not putting enough draft capital in there. It's 10 o'clock. I've kind of always committed we're going to try to keep this an hour. So I just want to maybe say a few things, point out a few people in the chat, and then we'll kind of wrap it up, trying to keep this stream from not going crazy long. But appreciate everyone who's here. I apologize if you just got in recently. There have been some issues with the chat, so I can't put chat up on the screen. But I want to say hey to some of the folks that have jumped in. If I haven't said hey to you, I apologize. Diego Perez, Jordan P, Cut Hicks and Kennard. We need D-line depths to restructure Phillips to a much less deal. So really pay him. Yeah, I generally agree with that. Yeah. And underscore saying maybe bring in guard Connor Williams from Cowboys. He's a name a lot of people talked about. I think there's some other free agents I like better, but yeah, bring in a guard. Someone, there's a number of players out there. Redder for the Steeler fan. Hey, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. JP is in here. I will say in general, though, I think they need to go with depth budget free agents. That's what they need to do. But while we wrap up, Aarron, do you have any parting thoughts, anything you want to kind of say before we head out?
I would just say this, and I know, the last time we talked about it, but in regards to the whole Kyler Murray thing, if there's anything we've learned with the Cardinals is to expect the absolute unexpected. This team has gotten DeAndre Hopkins. Mm-hmm. It's gotten J.J. Watt. And
Rodney Hudson,
Zach Ertz. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's just one final trade, one last gasp trade for Steve Keim to save his job. And I'm not saying that Murray being traded, right. Though I think it probably should happen, but I digress. But there may just be one other trade that finally, it might be Kyler's guy who finally gets traded to Arizona. So I don't have any sources. That's not confirmed. Don't put me down in cement like that. It's just my personal take and approach to the situation.
I mean, Keim's, for all the things we want to criticize about him, and I think there's some things he deserves to be criticized for, he's made one of those big moves every year, if not two, it seems like. So he's good with those big moves. He just needs to get better at drafting and building depth. But yeah. Well, everyone, listen, thanks for being here. Aarron, I really appreciate you being here. I always enjoy hanging out with you for the show. Folks, I'm going to be doing a live stream every Thursday. Aaron's going to join whenever, as much as he can. And then Kyler Burd wasn't able to be here with us tonight, but he'll join us when he can. So every Thursday night at the same time, 7:00 Arizona time, at least through most of the off season, we're going to do something. We'll talk about some different topics. And I'm also going to probably do another live stream at some point that has to do with drafts and mock drafts. So look for that in the coming weeks. But we'll see you guys next week. Make sure you follow Aarron Van Buren. His information is in the description below. Follow him on Twitter. Follow him on YouTube at the Cardinals Conversation Corps. I believe that I hope I got the links down below. If I didn't, I will put them there. Thank you all. We'll see you next time. Go Cardinals, and looking forward to free agency and the draft. Later.